Friday. That's the top 4 most actively traded Naira papers on Friday. And at the Treasury bills window, we went from triple digit to double digit, 82.78 billion, because of those open market operations and the FX activities of the Central Bank of Nigeria. But this is going to be a very interesting new week as we now put all hands on deck, and we're counting down to next week Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Central Bank. Now, one story on Tuesday was the president presented the budget 2018 draft to the National Assembly. Then, of course, he spoke on the state of the economy and hinted that the green bonds, Nigeria's green bond, the first in Africa, will be floated in December. Now we're sniffing all around that the president may actually come to the Nigerian Stock Exchange next month. That will be President Buhari's first time of coming to Broad Street since he came into power May 29, 2015. If this takes place, as we are getting some sources from the villa within the government, then this will be a very great day. But then the vice president has been there. The former environment minister was also there, Amina Mohammed, last year and early this year to get the marketplace, the center of capitalism, to buy into the bond and lay the groundwork for what the president will be launching in December. Well, let's look back. The last time Amina Mohammed was at the stock exchange before she went to the United Nations in company of the vice president and a few other government officials. Let's take a listen to what they say about the market and what the president will likely be talking about when he comes to Broad Street in December. You don't want to miss that.
It is an idea which was born during our first advisory group meeting in September 2016. The Green Bonds process is an attempt by the environment sector to contribute to this administration's efforts to diversify the economy, create jobs, improve security, and provide a framework for sustainable development that delivers on the Paris Agreement. Under the Paris Agreement, developed countries reaffirmed their commitment to mobilize $100 billion of resources by 2020, and this was to support developing countries. It is to enhance the implementation of our policies, strategies, regulations, and action plans, and most importantly, the climate actions with respect to both mitigation and adaptation. This objective will remain in place till 2025 and will act as a floor from which flows shall increase beyond 2025. The provision of these resources is indispensable to Nigeria if it is to realize its nationally determined contributions, submissions made by every country to the Paris Agreement and known as NDCs. But it also helps us to realize the commitment that we've made of a reduction by 45% of our emissions and then investing in adaptation and resilience building activities. The Paris Agreement, which was signed by Mr. President, enabled us to develop our NDCs and constitute an interministerial committee on climate change that's charged with the responsibility for cross-sectoral integration of climate issues into mainstream planning and also to identify a pipeline of projects that would support our NDC. But a pipeline of projects also that we have used the green bonds to begin the funding. The delivery of Nigeria's NDC will require a fundamental reorientation of financial flows within the economy. Capital will need to flow towards low-carbon, climate-resilient opportunities and away from the carbon-intensive, polluting activities or those that exacerbate climate vulnerability, leading to poverty, insecurity, and reduced health well-being. Green bonds presents for us an opportunity to begin to achieve this. The process which we will see Nigeria launch the first sovereign green bond in an emerging market began as a seed which was sown by the private sector, right here in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Today, we can say that we've achieved half that circle and will come full circle when we finally issue these bonds in what we hope will be the first quarter of this year. Since we began this process, we've taken a number of steps, which you will hear about later on, to ensure that we are able to sustain the inflow of additional funds through subsequent issuances and begin the process of attempting to green our economy. In other words, to go beyond the fad of greening an economy. I think most people hear that and they wonder, what has the UN come with again? This time we're hoping to show that this is a constructive and an integrated way forward to addressing the growth of our economy.
An important feature of the 2017 budget is the Energizing Education Project, which also will be one of the beneficiaries of these green bonds. Power has posed a major challenge and barrier to effective learning, institutional operations, and student residencies in our universities. So this program will improve access to power to 37 federal universities and 7 university teaching hospitals across the country. It will also impact the residents of surrounding communities, a total of about 1,110,000 people. In total, 119 megahertz of power will be provided in this scheme, out of which 60 megahertz will be solar-powered projects. The Ministry of Environment has also developed an afforestation program which will benefit from this bond. The aim is to increase forest coverage through the planting of seedlings to cover 131,000 hectares of land. This will not only reduce emissions but create hundreds of jobs. With the issuance of this green bond, we set a benchmark for ourselves and the wider market and begin to aggregate resources around elements of our economy that seek additional funding. Issuing green bonds are also a tool to support the shift to non-oil-based assets and attract private capital to finance these assets at a challenging time for our economy. Doing this as a sovereign gives us the opportunity to lay strong foundations that serve broader markets to bonds issuance and a pipeline of projects to states. It's important to note the transparent nature of the green bond process. The hurdles to scale are not very different from the typical steps in developing and implementing federal projects.
Nigeria's former Environment Minister, Amina Mohammed, and of course the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. That was in February. Now we're counting down and see how this administration made good that promise as the President reaffirmed last Tuesday. Let's come back on the break, and we have quite a bit of earnings stream that Culture's Capital has a few recommendations and premise as well as outlook on. Christian Orajakwe, the head of research, is sitting down with us to read us the tea leaves.